You are live on the internet.
Excellent.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Thanks everyone for coming again. Today we have Mallory Johnson who's going to be talking about qualitative text analysis in R using RQDA and QA. I made calling it RQDA this whole time. But just know I don't know about it, really just hear it out. So all yours. Yeah.
Okay, well, hi everyone. I'm Mallory Johnson. I'm newer to the R users group. I'm a master's level researcher over at UC Davis Health System. I work for the Institute for Population Health Improvement. I do a lot of program evaluation for public health programs and some health systems research. So we have a lot of different projects come through our office. So we're all the time having to get up to speed really quickly on new methods and new tools. So that's why the R users group has been so helpful for me getting versed in all of this really quickly. So I just wanted to say thank you really quickly to everyone who's helped me on the forums and with the fantastic trainings. They've really been invaluable to me. So. Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about RQDA, which is the R package for qualitative data analysis. It's really simple to get started with because everything is in the graphical user interface. So it's really just point and click. So it's a great way to get started in R if you're a qualitative researcher. And we're also going to play a little bit in the command line today, doing some basic summaries of the types of codes that are used, how often they're used, and that kind of thing. So even if you're a pretty new programmer, you'll get something out of today's presentation. But there's also a lot of advanced functions with RQDA, which I know less about. I know it works with the text mining package and also with some natural language processing. Which is something I don't know about, but I know that this package does work with those. So if you're into that kind of thing, there's definitely some functions there. So what is RQDA? It's a basic qualitative software application similar to like Atlas TI or Deduce. And basically what it does is it takes your text files and you code them manually, and it will put them into a SQLite server for you. So even if you know nothing about SQL, you can still use some of those functions, which is pretty great. It's also, because it works within R, you can have the option of doing some statistical analysis with your coding. And then it also works with R functions as well. So you can use it in a very simplistic way with just the manual coding, completely through the GUI, or you can do some pretty advanced stuff with it as well. So it's definitely a piece of software or a package that you can learn and grow with. So if you're new to R, the RQDA package can be a little difficult to install, so I just wanted to provide this link for anyone who's having trouble. There's also some really good YouTube videos out there if you get really lost on installing it. The presenter is a native French language speaker, so nice accent, it's really entertaining. So definitely check those out. Okay, so we'll go ahead and out of here, get started. Okay. Let's see if I can find my script. It may take me just a minute. Oh. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second here. Can't find my file. And I think I may have actually overwritten it. Sorry, guys. Yeah, okay. Well, it looks like maybe I can pull some of this out of here. Okay. Okay.
You can just, there's that to source button.
To source?
In the history. Not that, but in your history.
Yeah.
So you can just hit that to send whatever you have there over.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay. Okay. So am I still sharing? Is this still working? Okay. So, excellent. Yeah, I think this is going to work. Okay. So to call open the GUI, you just use this code here and it'll pop up. So here you can see it's not anything terribly fancy, but it has all the basic functions that you need and it's free, which is great, especially if you have a project with a lot of coders. Oftentimes if you're using something like Deduce or Atlas TI, you're paying for those licenses by the group size. So if you're using a lot of coders for better intercoder reliability, this is a really fantastic option. So it's free to everyone, easy to download. I'm going to be walking us through a project I recently completed. It was a statewide quality improvement project for California hospitals where they were working to try to reduce hospital-associated harm. And they kind of wanted to figure out, what was working about the program, what wasn't, how they could improve. So we did some case interviews with different hospitals that participated in the program, looking both at the hospitals that improved very significantly and those that didn't improve at all, or maybe they saw an increase in hospital-associated harm. So we were trying to figure out, were there necessary preconditions to participation in the program, or were the hospitals using the program in different ways that made it more or less effective? Okay. So I just opened our project, and the first thing you're going to do to get started is to import all of your different text files. So we did interviews with the individual hospitals and also with their improvement advisors, or the coaches that were helping them work towards these improvements. And we developed case studies, saved those in just a basic text file. And so we imported them. This is really super intuitive, which is great. So if you're working with interns or whatnot, it's really easy to help people train them. So you import with just the button here, and you can see, you can open the different files here, and you can see some of the coding that we've applied. You also have the option to create different memos about the hospitals. So you need to have a note here about different things you want to keep in mind about the file. It's a great way to store that all in one place and keep it very organized. Also, you can upload your codes here and you add it through the similar way. It's really straightforward. And it'll bring up your different codes. You can add a memo here likewise. Okay. I'm having some issues with this not opening, and I don't understand why. I think it may have something to do with the screen share. I'm not sure. Don't know why it's doing that. But just to give you an idea of what we were doing, the different codes that we were pulling from were from established theory, from a scholar who was looking at the organizational characteristics that help hospitals improve, with things like hospital-associated infections, surgical site infections, and basically they outlined 6 major domains, whether it's political factors within the organization or just educational deficits. And each of those things could either be a facilitator for doing change or a barrier. So all of our codes were derived from this established theory, whether it was having a lot of knowledge cultivation, or if you have a lot of turnover in your organization, oftentimes you can't hold on to the knowledge that you've worked to build. And so that can impact your ability to achieve improvement. So we loaded all of the codes in here. You can add a memo, which is great. So if you want to define exactly what the code means for other people that are working with you, that's a great way to do that. Let's see. Also, if you have a lot of codes, a really nice thing to do is lump them into code categories. Like we had the 6 different domains and a couple of codes associated with each of them. So we have that here. Also, if you were maybe doing something related to social media and you wanted to lump together Facebook, Twitter, and all of those things into one code category, you could do that here. So here you can see the different codes associated with each of the code categories. And to add codes to it, you just select Add To, and it brings up all of your codes here, and you can select which ones to add. So that's pretty straightforward. Now, to access the SQL Server, or if you just want to look at all of your files that talk about education, it couldn't be easier. You just go and you double click, and it brings up all of your cases. So I've actually started using this for literature reviews too. I'll just load all of the articles in, and as I'm going through and coding them, if I want to find all of the articles that mention this subject, you just double click here, and immediately it gives you the title of the text and the line, or actually the character at which you can find that code. So it's really easy to go back through and pick out what you need, which is great. So to apply codes, you go to File, you'll open File, and then move back to the Code button. So as I'm going through here, reading along, and I see that in this sentence they're talking about, I don't know, let's say they're talking about data, and I want to code it as data. So I would select my code here and then hit Mark. And you have the option to code each sentence with multiple things. So we had engage stakeholders around data. And so now, whenever I bring up, I double click, to bring up that code, it'll bring up those multiple categories as well, which is great. So it really saves you a lot of time going and searching for different things. And it's great to have this ability if you're a qualitative researcher. A lot of my professors would talk about doing this back in the day before they had this type of software. And it entailed like making copies and cutting it out and spreading it out on the floor, and just taking little snippets of text. So to be able to just do a query and pull it up really quickly is some really nice functionality. So that's basically the interface. Are there any questions about the GUI and how to use it at this point? It's pretty intuitive once you get in there. Let's see. That's a really good question, and I don't think so. Yeah, that's really good. No, actually.
Well, the coding process, I mean, the coding process is the by hand process. So,
Right.
well, I guess, so that's all in the, that's in the database. So I think the question is, how do you access that data, access that information here, essentially?
Okay, so that's what we're going to move on to now. We'll start by just producing a summary of all of the codes. So once I've gone through and coded everything, say I want to know how many cases mentioned this code, how long did they talk about it? You can use this prompt, summary codes, which you have to run with the GUI open, with the project open. And it brings up a nice summary here.
You have multiple projects open, so you need to specify which one you're talking about.
You can only have one project open at a time, but this accesses all the files associated with that project. Okay. And so here we go. It brings up the number of times each code is used, a really nice table. The average number of characters associated with that code. So we can see here that people really like to talk about disillusionment at their hospital, and fragmentation, obviously. Getting communication to move across the organization was a big barrier to them being able to implement different evidence-based practices that would reduce harm at their facility. And also the number of files associated with each code. So,
like a scatter plot of this information. Let's say you wanted to plot the number of files against the number of characters associated, and then label the points so that you can see which files are, if there's a ton of characters associated, is that a result of there being more files, or is it really popping out?
that's a really good question, and I definitely want to know the answer to that. I don't have it, but that would be really cool to do.
So you can't just save this as like an object or a table?
I don't. Well, let's try it. I haven't. Let's see. Let's call this. Okay. Oh, I see.
But what's the, if we look at your environment,
Yeah.
object code, what is it?
Ooh,
You know,
that's bizarre.
what, so I mean, if you put like, or maybe, or just type ST, the structure, STR of codes, you know, you can see.
Okay. Attribute class. So it's characters.
Yeah, so that's just a list of numeric data that it's returning. It has this nice pretty print function to show those tables. That's just that you get the list of numeric and character vectors that you could. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Definitely.
So how did you to say and label or anything, any of the, platforms?
Oh, I have no idea. I would be really interested to know that for sure. Okay. So, let's see if I can get back to my history here. Okay, so another neat thing we do, let's see. If you just want a list of all of your codes, you get a really nice table with your code ID, your file ID, the code name, the character point at which that code starts and stops, and the code length. So it would be possible to see just how much different cases talked about each different code. And then also another one I've actually used a good deal is it's possible to export all of your findings to HTML. So if you're going to a meeting with the other people working on the project and you want to bring a printout of all of these different codes, select a couple of values here, you can do that. And it just gives you a really nice way of putting everything out. You can go to different hyperlinks. And again, it just gives you the name of the file, the character reference, all in one spot. All right.
And some of these students don't take the input that are going through reading all these things, and then they're the ones that are deciding on whether or not this represents frustration or.
Right. So kind of a code book that we developed. Yeah. Let's see. That would be me. It was, here it is. It was based on the theory that we were working off of. And here it is. So we had our code categories, which were our 6 main organizational domains, a descriptor, and then how it works is either a facilitator for achieving improvement or a barrier, and then an example of what that is. And so I actually did all the coding for this. Yeah. But it came out, it was pretty well received, so. That's that. Well, that's all I had to present today. I can try to take some questions, but I really am just getting started with all of this. So I'm interested in exploring some more of like the text mining aspects of this and the plotting. I think that sounds really fascinating and like it could be very useful. So yeah, I just wanted to introduce it, and that's it.
I think it's a great initiative. Together working with this. So I think lots of to do that.
Yeah.
That's all this. That's one we can do. We can use the to generate work documents.
That reminds me, there is like a coding network functionality. It doesn't really make sense with this project that I'm working off of, but if you go to code categories, select them. Okay. And then you can plot your code categories. Let's see, and it will give you a diagram of the different categories that you've selected and how they relate. So, but yeah, it's just the nuts and bolts, really. It certainly doesn't have as much functionality as a lot of the qualitative software out there, but you know, for free. It's a good option.
So, I asked, you have multiple people working on coding the project. I mean, how do you share the database? Do you know how, like, is there, you just all have the same thing and is there someone who merges the information, or do you work on a different set of documents that you put together?
That's what we've done. Yeah, I've treated each coder has their own file, pretty much. And so when I go to upload their file, I would have them all in here and just title them something a little bit different to indicate who the coder is.
But does that do the, like, if you import like a file, does it have the, is it coded like the text file? Like if everybody you have 100 files, you split them amongst 4 people, and everyone does some coding,
Yeah.
how do you get all of them with all the codes?
Yeah, we've all been working off of the same file. So I don't have a lot of support, so it's not often that I have the luxury of, but I imagine that, you know, you could take the R script and probably push it to GitHub and branch it.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
everything is in an SQL database as the back end. Like, in theory, you should all be able to, like, it's SQLite, so it's just one file. So you should probably be able to just put that like on a Dropbox and everyone
Yeah.
work with that. I don't know how there'd be conflicts doing that, but in theory, you should be able to work off that. If that's just what that QDA file is,
Right.
then it should be, multiple people should be able to access it, essentially, and make changes to it.
Yeah. I know this is where we kind of reached the end of my knowledge of this, and certainly of SQL, which I don't know a lot about. So.
And then the input has to be a text file. It doesn't mean
Unfortunately, yeah, it won't take a PDF. I know with Atlas TI you can upload a lot of images that you're working with, and this doesn't have that functionality. I think it's a newer package, so unfortunately, or at least it's a package that hasn't gotten a lot of attention. So if you go to Stack Overflow, unfortunately, you're not going to find much of anything out there. So I think it definitely has a lot of potential to do some really cool things, but just not many people are working with it right now. But certainly, different file formats and the ability to work with those would be really helpful.
the code was reproducible.
Yeah, and I think, you know, there are ways to do most of the stuff in the command line. I just haven't taken advantage of that because using the GUI is so easy.
Yeah. What is it? I noticed that installed here something called, the asked me to install later. But the GUI is not. Do you know what this is? Because I'm afraid that everything's happening in the GUI actually, right? I mean, other companies are going to put GUI and the GUI is translated that to the R interpreter.
Right.
Okay, so to have access to what actually is going on, I need to get to the GUI. The GUI is just processing everything, or?
That I don't know. Yeah. Sorry.
So this is built, I think this is built on what's called TCL/TK, right? And that's like one of the older ways of sort of building. Like a lot of times we'll have something that's like a pop-up progress bar in our, it's like a win thing. So those are built on TCL/TK2, and it's actually sort of a framework for building GUI, but they're all using an R packet. You know, everything happens in TCL/TK. Yeah.
There's a task package they use TCL/TK as well, and the code always goes in the command line, and you can expect you know what you did.
Yeah, yeah. I think that one for building GG plots, it's an older one. It's a TCL/TK thing too.
RCMD.
Yeah.
You can
Our commander. Yeah.
Our commander. You can export everything you did here. And this is running on our CTQR. I'm not sure it is because it looks so different. Then we should see what's up there, but it depends on somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, it seems that the main thing that's happening in the GUI here, that needs to happen in the GUI, is like the actual coding process, and all that we'll be doing will be inserting information into this SQL database, and then it seems like the other thing that's going on is all of these commands that are here are extracting and grabbing the information from that SQL database. And so like the process of coding is just sort of is data generation. And then everything you do in here is getting the data out of there to process it. And I guess the TCL/TK interface has some of like that plot generation. If we dig into this, those plot generation probably commands for that for generating them in R. But I mean, to some extent, I mean, the coding itself is like this data collection, that's never, that's never the what you can reproduce in here, because it's,
No, you could,
Yeah.
the code should be basically an annotation of what point in the text file you are marking that code.
yeah,
Right?
and that's what that table had, for instance. If you pull up that, what was it, the get coding table?
Yeah,
Uh,
right, so,
that's essentially what that is.
Coding, yeah, exactly, that's what it is, yeah.
Yeah, because that's your,
Yeah.
in the file, at what location is what code assigned.
So, but we don't have a code that generated this, right? Because this would be amazing, because every work you do in coding would potentially be reproducible for a much larger than a data set. So every research you do, any quantitative code you have done, and the team can imagine how big it is, if the team is big, you can just reproduce that to large corporate, something that has never been possible before, because all the platforms that have to do this kind of annotations are black boxes, basically. And if we have a system that we can actually track what has been done, we can all reduce that, but we could potentially apply it over and over again.
Oh, wait, so I'm trying to understand here. So what you have here,
Do the start number on that.
Yeah. Well, it's not that you can't apply what you did in the past corporate, right?
Well, you might have right, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
But you can corporate.
So the different corporate, yeah. Different tax, different setup, because it's not an interview. This is about more interview, more.
How would we do that? Using some machine learning.
Or anything like that. Anything that we do to help.
yeah, I mean, this is just an interface for raw data generation, right? So like, now you have a training set, essentially here. So if you move to a thing that, if you move to natural language processing, which is a different set of tools, you use this as a training set, essentially, because then you can say, you can do something like figure out what the word frequency is inside each of those codes. So you can, you can use the text mining package and use those related packages to say, okay, give me the frequency of words across all engaged stakeholders, and then in a different file, like, give me areas that are high probability engaged stakeholders, essentially. But that's, I mean, RQDA is just the data generation process. I think more than there might be more in there, in the in sort of the programmatic aspect of of processing in that way, but
right.
yeah, if you look at these, it's mostly like how to access information within the database, and then there are things like some like statistical things like the intercode relationship and such.
Are the files stored in the SQLite database, or the text files, or is the SQLite database just like storing the tags?
I think it's just storing the tags,
So the
yeah.
text remains in like a text file.
Exactly.
And we can say environment, say an image of the environment and open the machine. I mean, the same question I asked before, how easy it is to work in teams?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, we've been working pretty much off the same file, but
So you said you're using that for your literature collection.
yeah.
So how do you like copy everything from PDF to that?
Yeah, that's what I've done. Yeah. But yeah, I'm, for instance, doing something with severe sepsis epidemiology right now. So I'm trying to write about all of the different estimates that people have made with different algorithms. So it's been nice to just pull up all of those that use this algorithm and the number they came up with. But yeah, just
Do you use the PDF? Do you just like highlight?
Yeah.
Highlights?
that would be awesome. Yeah, for sure. Definitely would benefit from that sort of functionality. So, but yeah, right now it's just the text. But yeah, I know the TM file works with PDF, so I guess it's possible.
Is that one of the services?
TM is the text mining. package? I did not know we could get PDF information.
You can convert the PDF to text using that and then keep your library intact.
Oh, it's a different package that works with PDFs in R. So, yeah.
Piece of PDF text.
But it has some functionality.
I'm just starting to learn about the text mining. I actually think it has loads more functionality than RQDA.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right.